Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Financial Decoder. This episode will be talking a lot about credit card debt. I'm sure some of you have credit card debt at home. I know I myself use credit cards all the time. However, I make sure to use them responsibly, and we'll get into what that looks like later on. In this video, I want to look at a couple of TikToks of some interesting credit card debt situations people have found themselves in, and talk about some things that we could maybe try as a society to change, or just general good practices and bad practices. Let's jump into it.
Well, okay, something,
Yes.
I'm going to cut you off. Something's not correlating for me, because if we decided, oh, I'm a big boy now, all this stuff, what are we doing if we have these, we haven't even got into the other debts yet, but you're losing $41 of interest on just this one. And guess what? You're still buying energy drinks like crazy, like multiple times a week. Also stopping almost every day at a fast food restaurant drive-thru and getting bottles of water. Why are we doing all this if we're grown up and we're taking care of debts?
This first video is by Caleb Hammer. If you don't know Caleb, he's a phenomenal content creator. He does these financial audits where he really deep dives into people's finances, talks a lot about what they should do, what they need to change, tries to do a little bit of, personal connection of like, hey, get your stuff together. You should check him out. This video shows someone who is just not making good decisions, right? Now, they clearly have a substantial amount of credit card debt, and there are reasons for why that's there, right? That is, we don't see that in this clip, but it could be anything from irresponsible spending to situations that he had to use the credit card for. But the aftermath here that we see in the video is that he's still not spending correctly, right? Spending money on energy drinks, buying water when you're out. Water, that stuff, don't be buying water. Don't be buying water. And if you really need the energy drinks, switch to coffee, right? But this showcases that a lot of Americans don't understand the concept of a credit card. Credit card is money that is being loaned to you. And it doesn't feel that way because it's on this nice little plastic little card, sometimes metal, that you enjoy. It's easy to take around. It's easy to swipe, tap, whatever, right? But in reality, you are borrowing money from someone, right? It's a company, but someone. These credit cards, anytime money is being borrowed ever, even if it's just through a loan, not a credit card, you're going to be charged interest. This has been something that has been around since ancient civilizations. The idea of, oh, if I'm going to give you money to use on something, well, I need to get more than that back for it to be worth giving it to you. If you have a credit card, you are borrowing money. If you keep an account balance that goes month to month to month, right, and you don't pay it all off, you're losing. The credit card company is winning. For example, January, I spend $100 on a 20% interest card. At the end of the month, I don't pay anything off. February rolls around. Let's say I don't spend any more money on the card, but I don't pay anything off. In February, the total balance on that card will be $120. That is $20 that was just stolen from you by this company. Now, I understand people are saying, well, it's $20. That's not a lot of money, considering I'll be able to just pay it off the next month, right? And no, $20 is not a lot of money, but let's rephrase and reshape how we're looking at it. So $20, not a lot of money, but minimum wage in this country is $7.50. That means that $20 that company is essentially stealing from you, you would have to work over 2 hours of work. And why did they get that $20? Simply because you borrowed $100 and didn't pay it back in time. Now, I'm not saying that people that lend money and companies that lend money shouldn't be making money off of that. What I am saying is that I hold a personal belief that we should cap that percentage, right? 20% is low for credit cards. We see credit cards often at 25, 30%. Credit card companies should be capped at an interest rate no higher than that of inflation. That's my hot take.
Somebody please get this man.
And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it's that hot. They're still earning interest off of these amounts of money, right? They're still making money doing what they're doing. They're just making less money. And I think that that's acceptable, especially in a time where Americans owe over $1 trillion in credit card debt. Trillion. That's a number so big that a lot of us can't even really comprehend that. Of that $1 trillion that's owed, I'm willing to bet a big chunk of it is being used to earn interest for these companies. And they make billions and billions and billions of dollars off of these interest rates. That's why they need to be capped. We're hurting people's lives by taking money away through interest rates. That's my first point. Let's jump into this next video to take a look at a very similar situation.
You know what the worst part of credit card debt is? The guilt you feel when you buy literally anything. Like, I'm on the way to get a coffee right now because our coffee pods haven't shown up in the mail. And I'm like, do I need to spend that money? Can I just not have coffee today? Yeah, no, unless you want, like, the worst version of myself to come up, I need coffee today. But I feel guilty about it.
This video is a bit of a double-edged sword for me. On one hand, this guy clearly understands that he should not be spending his money in this way because he knows there are priorities that it should go to. But on the other hand, part of me is like, we're human beings. He should be able to buy a cup of coffee if he wants a cup of coffee, right? I'm not saying, buy an insanely priced, $19 cup of Joe from Starbucks, right? It's just that sort of thing that kind of tears both ways for me. Like, yeah, he shouldn't be spending that money. He could put that money towards somewhere new. But on the other hand, he's waiting for his coffee pots to arrive. The dude wants coffee on that day. He's a human being. He should have some coffee, right? That one I'm not entirely sold on which way is the correct way to go. But what I can say is that if interest rates were a little bit lower, he'd probably have a little bit more wiggle room to be able to live his life the way that he'd like to and buy a cup of coffee. Now, this next video showcases another reason why I think interest rates should be capped on credit cards, aside from the fact that credit card companies are predatory on their own and specifically seek out situations and people that find themselves in situations where they can't really pay the money back. Let's take a look.
I have a question. How much credit card debt are you in? Because for context, I'm 26, I've been working since 17, paying for my own shit, moved out at 18, have been independent ever since. And I have $10,000 worth of credit card debt. And I will be the first to admit that I'm not perfect. I've definitely paid off medical bills and like emergency vet visits and things on my credit card, but I've also bought a lot of dumb shit. But it's like people my age have $55,000 worth of credit card debt. Do you see how my eye's twitching? That shit stresses me out.
So, why'd I include this video? Great question. Firstly, we hear a side of credit card debt that is not often discussed. And that comes from necessary purchases. Things like medical debt, things like vet visits, things like house or property reconstruction from damages, that sort of thing. I understand these are not things that necessarily have to go on credit cards. These are things that have multiple options to pay for them. But this leads kind of into my next point, is that we need to increase education about what credit cards are and what credit card companies look for in people. Education around this topic would allow for people to make informed decisions on the least destructive or damaging path for them financially. We saw in this case, the first step is realizing that you have made mistakes, right? Or that you will make mistakes. I think that's important. The second step is understanding that there were situations that you just weren't educated about. Educating yourself about that is important. That's kind of why I'm here. I'm trying to help.
Thank you, Chef.
The third step is figuring out a game plan on how to go about fixing it, right? Who can you talk to? What agencies can you reach out to? What programs are there that can help you through these sort of things? And that doesn't just mean for the credit card debt. That also means for the medical bills, for the vet visits. I'm a strong believer that someone shouldn't have to put down a pet that they love, a family member that they enjoy, because it's a little bit too much money that they're going to have to put on their credit card. Now, don't get me wrong. There are limits. Absolutely. There are always outliers in every single situation. It's not black and white. It's very gray. I'm saying that you shouldn't have to put your pet down if it's $1,000 surgery, right? I think that's a little crazy. Now, you can make the argument, should have had pet insurance, should have had savings, should have had this, should have had that. Of course we should have had that. That's what the education will help with. The question is, what can we do now? What can we do to help these people that are in these situations get out of these situations? Oh, I don't want to help that person. They put themselves in that situation. Cool. You don't have to help them directly, but let's fix the system. Let's fix the process that pipes people to these positions. That's what we need to focus on. Step 1, education. Step 2, capping interest rates on credit cards. This next video ties right into what I've been talking about just not being educated about credit cards, how they work, how debt works, and finances in general.
But I have been financially not doing great. I am a nurse. even though I am a nurse and I make good money, I don't have money, which is the sad part because of the choices that I've made still currently and the choices that I've made like previously, like from a couple of years. I am in credit card debt, and it's this unhealthy cycle that I have been putting myself into, and this just relationship with money has just never been something that I was talked about.
This is someone who is beginning their life, right? They're at the earlier stages. She's a nurse. She makes good money. She's doing something that she enjoys, I hope. But this is someone who is shackled by past errors, past mistakes that were made. And she can't dig her way out as easily as she'd like to, or without pain, sacrifice, and suffering, which, don't get me wrong, are required in a lot of situations. But she can't get out of this without those because of the way that the system is. Just because you make a mistake in the past does not mean that you should be shackled today because of it. I'm not giving the okay for you to go out and make bad decisions and expect your life to turn out okay. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are people who have made bad decisions in the past, who are aware that they've made a bad decision and are doing everything that they can to get out of that situation, and it's still not enough. Education stops people from getting into this scenario. So what's the biggest takeaway I want you as a person who doesn't have a credit card yet, or maybe does have a credit card? What do I want you to take away from this? What's the biggest thing that I want you to have educated yourself about? Firstly, it's not your money. I don't care that it's in your wallet. It's not your money. That means that whatever you do with that money, it will be collected one way or another by these companies. They will garnish your wages. Your credit score will tank. There are ways that you will be damaged by this, both emotionally and financially, that will take a while to recover from. Understand that it's not your money to spend, okay? So if you can't spend it, really try not to. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you can only survive because of a credit card, that's where some other serious financial options come in, and you're going to have to talk to someone on a professional level about how to go about that. The big takeaway from this video, if you're not in credit card debt, but you do find yourself being financially responsible and you want to know what we can maybe change as a society to make things a little bit better for not just you, but for everyone, capping interest rates seems like a really great option. No reason that interest rates should be at 20-30% at all, especially for people who are using these to buy groceries and things, clothes for their kids, right? Again, within limits, but you understand what I'm saying. The second thing, education is key. We need education around these topics to exist. Credit card companies, these really predatory ones, are relying on people not knowing, not understanding. They're relying on ignorance with these people so that they can take advantage of them financially. With all of that said, thank you so much for watching another episode of Financial Decoder. Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comment. I love talking to you all about this, and I'll see you all next time.